Hi, this is Kevin Kolb with the Opportunity Channel, brought to you by shopabizop.com. Today we're here with founder Frank Covich of BBiz Broker. I've known Frank for over a decade. I'm really thrilled to bring week 5 together to allow Frank to tell us not only a little bit about his opportunity, but also the science and the art of business transfer consulting. It's very important to kind of know the art behind that. And I'm excited to have Frank share with us. So Frank, if you could take it away and tell us a little bit about.
Sure, thanks, Kevin. Let me start by saying I grew up in Chicago in the Midwest. And in my early career, I worked in manufacturing and all different kinds of distribution businesses like Sears, Allied Radio, and eventually Sun Chemical. And I developed a career of being a cost savings person, and then got recruited to be in the consulting business, which flew me to New York. And I spent more than 10 years working at big industry all around America. At one time, I had over 200 consultants working for me. That was kind of interesting work. Then I finally worked for another company called Noss Newland, which was a medical center company. So I've traveled all throughout Canada doing cost savings, non-medical things with hospitals and all kinds of manufacturing companies. So during that process of learning how to do this, I became a trainer, I became an educator, and I worked with some of the sharpest young guys in America as they went every weekend to different places to do these projects. So as I lived in New York City in 1980, I wanted to buy a business. I had some people that were actually back me up to buy a big one. So I found a business broker on Madison Avenue who really knew his stuff. I mean, he was there for 30, 40 years. He was selling restaurants for the mob. I mean, he was turning over. He was buy a restaurant and sell it every year, and skate taxes. And the thing that impressed me about the guy's name, his name is Charlie McLaughlin, he's long passed, but he had made $33.2 million selling a coal mine to his buddy, W.R. Grace, who we went to school with. Wow. Big companies. And he showed me the check, $3.2 million. So at the time I met him, this is an important story, he had 10, 15 people in his office, and he outlived them all, including his wife. And so he wanted me to buy McLaughlin Enterprises, as a business, and because he saw that I was sort of sharp in my own way. And he shortly died. Yeah. And so when I, and looking at and getting to know him, I used to go to the Waldorf. My little side story is I used to go to Waldorf Astoria and have lunch with him. And guess who was next to us all the time, like at least 5 or 6 times? Trump. He would sit right next to us with one of his beauties, and Charlie knew him, and he'd say hi to him, and I'd be sitting there. And it's funny that years later, he is what he is now. So that was a funny part of it, but it was right down the street on Madison Avenue, and where the Waldorf Astoria is, and they had a breakfast place there. So it was really cool. But what happened is I recognized that the industry was very unstructured. And I also had a lot of my consultants burning out. They were just traveling. And I said, these guys are working with the owners of companies. They could talk to them. So I developed a quick little training program. And I gave it to a few guys, and they did really well. So I decided to start a company that would develop a training program for business brokers. And I evolved it on a little Mac Plus, one page at a time. And shortly I had enough to sell, so I put an ad in the New York Times. I even have a copy of it here, if you can see that. Maybe you can see that, I don't know. It says, everyone's looking for a business opportunity. It was a little banner ad. And I would put that in the New York Times. Fantastic. I got things to show you because I think it's better to show and tell. This is, just an overview of, maybe you can see it, of Inc. magazine. Everybody caught on to my little ad and started calling me. And I had clients before I had the bill. So shortly after that, the authors of this book, 101 Best Businesses to Start, and this is you 40 years ago, Kevin. This is you.
Thank you so much.
This is you.
That's an awesome book, by the way.
Interesting Business Opportunities, 1992, okay? I was a feature article. So everybody that went in there that says, I want to start a flower shop or buy a muffler shop or a franchise or something, they saw me and no franchising. And I got a lot of calls and I got a lot of great clients. And to make a long story short, I've sold my program to the ex-vice president of Federal Express, the retiring president of Sherwin-Williams, all kinds of accountants, attorneys, CPAs, and little guys. I sold my program to a guy who was a dairy farmer in Wisconsin. He was scared to come to New York to spend the day with me, but he came and he didn't want to leave. And he made the fastest deal that we ever made in the history of the NABB. He had a friend that owned the Dairy Queen, a AEW root beer thing. And in Wisconsin, they closed down for 6 months, 6-month business. He paid me $15,000. Within 3 weeks, he had his $15,000 back because he sold it for $180,000 and made his 10%. Then he was in the business for free, and he was shrinking his dairy farm. So there's an example of a person who you wouldn't think would be a business broker, but he did well. So that's a little bit of my story, how I evolved. And now, I'm marketed almost exclusively with you because I think it's the right format, because nobody's going to go to the store and buy these books anymore. And it was really nice having it because this was a gold mine for me. But online is where it is, where you can compare and shop, and I think that's a good idea. What I like to say about this, the right person for this, I always tell people that, number one, this is a $500 opportunity. It's not a $50,000 franchise that sort of tells you everything and then you end up getting screwed in the end. This is a starter practice as a consultant for a few $100s. And if you can do the research and work at it, you can find a deal and close it and make substantial amount of money. It's possible to pay off your home in one deal. Okay. And I have guys that are disabled. I have military people in the past. And some of my guys just stumbled into deals. So when people call me or they register for information, I like to get into a conversation with them. And that conversation is going to be pretty simple. What kind of work have you been doing? Okay. Are you working now? And what is your focus? Do you have a focus? Like some people call me and they were working in the durable medical equipment industry. That's a great industry.
Great industry.
Or they sell things to cardboard boxes to factories, and they know all the owners. These kind of guys are golden. They're all set up for it. But what I tell people nowadays, because of the way we're structured, is you can use the internet to research. And the research you want to do are 3 different things. The first thing is, who are the accountants and attorneys and CPAs and even lawyers who might have clients that they see every year, especially at the during the tax season, who are in a life-changing situation. And that can be where they're older, they have nobody to leave it to, and they want to sell. That can be where they may just get burned out. Or in a lot of cases we've had, and sadly, the guy's sick or his wife is sick, and they just decide they're going to cash this business out. So they look for a broker. And so what do? They put an ad in the paper, and everybody calls up and asks them how much you make. He shouldn't be telling that to people. Or they go to a Century 21 or something and find a real estate person who thinks they're a real estate business broker, and then they want to put it on a list. And now your company's on a list that says it's for sale, and your competitors are going to say, why would you work with them? Their people are going to be shrunk down. They're going to be, they use it against you. So you don't want to do that.
It is a
tool.
So
my story to people thinking of setting up, if you can work smart, if you can do a little bit of research, and you can do mailings. Nowadays, people aren't reading all their emails. The guy business owner, you would get 500 emails a day. You don't read. You read what you think is important. But if you got a letter in the mail that says, I am a specialist in selling companies like yours, internet companies, and I have an audience, you'll put that in your drawer. You might not want to sell now, but someday you might pull out and say, I want to talk to this guy. And that's the magic of the business brokerage, is that you can put a little brochure in a guy's hand that says, when it's time to sell your business, here's what you maybe do. If that's to an accountant, and he sees 50 clients and 2 or 3 of them are in that mode, he can't handle that. You just tell him you want to barter with him. You tell him, if I find a nice company that needs an accountant, I'd like to refer you. I'm going to put you on my list of referral accountants. And you get them, that's yours. You get a guy who wants to sell, send them to me. I'll do the best I can for him. I've had my one friend in New Jersey got 27 deals from one accountant. He made over $7 million on those leads. And what did he do? He took the accountant out to lunch a few times. So in business brokerage, that's sort of like the potential. As far as getting there, when people come to me to look at this as one opportunity of hundreds that are out there, I just say, number one, you got to have a way to stay alive, because this doesn't happen overnight. It's not a vending machine. And if you can do, instead of watching television, spend 2 or 3 hours a week doing research, send the first blast to accountants, CPAs, and attorneys asking for a referral. And there's an exact letter we send it. And then the next thing is do research. Who are the business owners? You draw a circle of about 50 miles with you. And if you lived in New York City, 1/3 of all the businesses in the United States are within 500 miles of New York City. So you don't have enough money to send them all a card one time. So you sort of pick an industry and give it a shot. And if you don't have an industry, you just go after them. Because I got another example where a guy sent a letter to a guy that was in the gravel industry. And up and down the highways, there are these gravel companies. And he found a whole bunch of them looking to want to sell. And he became the gravel broker, for gravel companies, and made a ton of money. So these different industries have different guys that come in and out. And as far as business brokerage, there are a lot of deal makers out there, people playing golf, trying to do it, but it's not a very structured industry. And what I would like to say to people as far as franchising, which you represent franchises, but as far as business brokerages, years ago when I started, I ran my ad. Everybody's looking for a business opportunity. And some guy that started this thing called VR Business Broker started copying my ad. Okay. And so he tried to franchise what he did. And he did pretty successful, but he put hundreds of people in the tank. On Long Island, they sold 27 franchises. My one broker had them out of business within a year, because what they would do is go and beat up the people saying, I need this information, I need this, I need this, I need this, instead of becoming a friend. So the science and art of being a business broker consultant is to become a friend to the seller, to become honest, sincere, and never say it's doing 10 million a year. You say it is reported to do 10 million a year. You don't want to commit something that you don't know.
Realistic numbers.
I think that, in telling the story of this practice, if you have a way to stay alive, if you want to work smart and go after these kind of situations, which are people selling businesses, at the same token, you put another hat on, and it's finding buyers. And when I tell people today, it's very hard to sell a pizza parlor, because somebody can go down the street, rent the space, and open another one. You want to work in businesses that have substantial revenue involved in them. And what I know of the facts from the government are there's 25 million small businesses in America with sales under $20 million. That's the numbers I know. And 1 in 5 changes hand every year.
Wow, that's amazing, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's a lot. Well, and 1 in 5 changes hands every year for one reason or another. Sometimes they give it to their kids, but sometimes, and many of them just go out of business because they don't have a broker to help them. So positioning, and when I tell people that come to me, I says, come up with a nice generic name. Don't use your name and label yourself, because like in certain cities like Chicago, certain ethnics don't want to work with the other ethnics, So you don't call your company Jablonski and Associates, more or less. You try to call it Spectrum Business Acquisitions. And so as that letter goes to an owner, it says, maybe they want to buy me. And he opens up and says, well, they're a broker. Okay, that might be even better. So there's all these little insider things they get from me in conversation. So when people buy from me, what are they getting? They're getting a conversation with me. They're getting a system. And when I talk about a system, just to give a glance at it, I've spent a lifetime developing all the forms and agreements and things that you need to contract different ways with different kinds of businesses. And I give people master copies of this day one. And so they have all the tools, even the exact letter to send to people as a script. That's what I'm selling. The other thing I'm selling is the science and art of how to profile a business. And this is an example of a business that Mr. Roa got $10,000 to put together for the owner, because he said, no, guess what? I'm not a non-for-profit organization. If you're going to sell your business, it's substantial. I need to package this properly. I need to get some information from accounting people and maybe an appraiser. I'm not an appraiser. And he packaged this business up and he sold it. And this was like a $500,000 commission on this little business. And he did 279 of these profiles and sold the companies while he was a broker. And that's a gentleman that owned a company in New Jersey called Telesis. So that's another little skill that I teach. And then the last thing, not the last thing, but what I try to get people to do is make a formal presentation. And then talking to a business owner, so you get involved with me, you're talking to a guy, you're flipping through this thing, and you're talking to an owner, making them show that you know what you're talking about. What are the reasons most people sell? And you hone in on whatever one of these topics are. And then you finally get to a page on this thing which says, what is the business brokerage process? And here is the successful steps for selling a business. And I'm just flashing it, but it basically says, here's where we're at. Here's where we want to go. You have to march through this with me. And then it says, what's this profile? The guy will point to it and say, what's this profile? And you say, let me talk about that. That's this, okay? If we do this for you, we got 100% better chance to sell. So the science and art of business brokerage is the science of networking, the science of just being resilient as you look for leads and contacts and associates. And then it's following these steps that says, if I have a nice person and I want to contract with them, I'll give you an agreement. You approach them gently, not beating them up, saying, you got to give me all your financials. I always tell my guys in the beginning stages, don't ask for their financials. How much you want? Tell them the story that if somebody's going to buy your company and it's a screw machine company or something like that, they're going to come in there and count every screw. So let's be realistic. And you as a broker are a marketing person, not an appraiser. So that's one of the science, staying out of the things that people think you do, like real estate people, and you don't get into. So that's, I hope you like that overview. I can help just about anybody to give it a try. And recently I had a guy, he was 87 years old. He calls me from Maine. He says, Frank, one of my buddies is getting older and he wants to sell his business. And I've been looking at this for 30, 40 years and how to figure out how to do it. And I found your link and I said, I can get all this forms and agreements and he wanted just the agreement. And I said, sure. And next thing I know, click, he bought it. 3 weeks later, I get a call, say, Frank, that agreement you gave me was perfect. I sell this business. I made a couple $100,000. I love you.
Well, it does take only one sale. It really does.
Yeah. And I can tell another story that this might be interesting to people. Is years ago, a guy came me, a Hasidic guy from New York, came to me and said, will you work with me? Because it's a little kind of a cliquey group. And I said, of course. And he wanted to hand me a bag full of diamonds to buy my program at $15,000. And I said, my God, just bring me a check. It was funny. I don't need a bag of rubies and diamonds. He was a merchant. And so he bought my program and I never heard from him again until years later. And what he did is he used my forms and agreements to go and list a company, which is something like 47th Street Photo in New York City. It was on Long Island. And it was a big company with about 25 people working there, and the guy wanted to sell it. So he put together a group to buy it for a couple $1 million, and he took his commission as his deposit. And it was part of the deal. So he owned 10% of the business, and he had a job. So here he goes. 8 years later, they sold it for $9 million. He owned 10% of it because he did the deal with me, and he made $900,000 for doing that deal. He had his job, and it was a really happy deal. And this guy told me, he says, Frank, nobody would work with me unless they were in the community. That's a very tight-knit community. So I'll work with anybody. I had a lady in Mississippi. She called me up years ago, and she was a maid. And she was divorced. She had problems and everything. She says, Frank, I think I know how to do this. I think I can do this because I know some people. And so I told her, we'll try to do your letter campaigns. I made a deal with her to get started. And she wrote a letter to a guy who had a 7-Eleven. And I said, well, 7-Eleven is going to be real. She went after it. The guy had 27 of them.
Go with Dunkin' Donuts. No, just kidding. Product placement. Sorry. No, go ahead.
Doing commercials during my show here.
Yes, sorry about that.
So anyhow, what I'm saying is she turned around and sold whatever it is, 27 locations and the warehouse and made like $400,000 and changed your life. And all because she gave it a shot. And I was able to give her terms back then. So, what I just wanted to get the message across to anybody that sees this, if you're looking at all the different business opportunities, some of them might be perfect for you. Some people need a product. If you want to have the consulting view, if you want to learn from me, and I've been doing this for many years, I had a meeting with a big acquisition company a few years back in San Jose, and they flew in from New York to meet with me, and called Franklin Hamilton, a really neat company. And he said to me, he was Japanese, I think, you father of business brokerage. I read your name in 20 books. It was so funny. And he was looking if I wanted to work with him and do acquisitions,
True, though.
It was really funny, but I am in 40 books. Most of them are older books. I'm in a book called Valuing Businesses and Professional Practices.
Wow.
And, you know, those are old stuff, but the new modern young people can do this. And they can do this without mortgaging their home and getting a giant loan and being in debt. Now, the other road that some people want to take is to go work for a business broker. Most of them are franchises and they're restricted by what they can do. But what happens is you get an owner who sees the deal flow. And if you're working there in commission only and he sees a good deal, usually what I hear is they take that deal and you get nothing. So, you know, it's a hard game to learn from. And there were other franchises. There was about 6 of them. I think only a couple of them are still in business, franchising business brokerage. One of them was in Arizona that was charging $40,000. And before you knew it, you had an office, you had a copy machine, you had all these expenses. You were $100,000 in the hole before you make the first deal. So,
everything the shoppers watching this don't want.
Yes, right. So you know, the science and art in business brokerage is being a consultant to the people, being their friend. Telesis, my friend who started his name, which was a great organization, Telesis, his name meant truth to an end. So his whole thing was being truthful and being honorable with the people he worked with. And that was his main thing. And that'll work. So that's a story. I know you might have a couple more questions. You have anything else?
I do. I wanted to, you know, get more into how do people get started. You know, the point of, you know, each week in the videos is to put shoppers and buyers together utilizing new technology, YouTube and various other things. Because in the 2D environment, what a lot of people won't probably see when they watch this video is shopabizop.com portal website will actually display BBizBroker. Many people will go there, they'll read about your opportunity, they'll see it in a 2D format, even though you have a video there and a couple other things, or even a phone number. But the idea behind this is to describe the opportunities. Who's it good for? What income can really be made? And allow people to know exactly what people are selling. Some people are selling programs and that's it. There's no training, there's no afterthought, there's no, I have a question I can ask someone who has a relevant answer. And then they end up buying something that they are kind of stuck with, that they don't really understand what the next step is. And if you're asking yourself what the next step is and you just bought a business, you just bought a failure. No offense. You know, that you've bought into something that you're unaware of what your strategy is. And that's not a good thing, you know, to do. The other thing is yours is low cost. It's under $500. It's something anybody could put on a credit card. As a matter of fact, they can actually go to bizbroker.com and you can actually just purchase this and download it. You can also go to shopabizop /listings/BBizBroker. But BBizBroker will get it done for you. And the folks that, you know, this is good for is fairly wide ranging, but I did want to touch on this a little bit because there's some folks that this is not good for. Can you touch on that a little bit before we take a wrap? And maybe even a part B on this is what would be the best way to get the shopper in touch with you if they wanted to buy this?
All right, that's pretty fair. Number one is people will wake up in the morning and say, I would like to do something better to help myself because I'm not getting a bonus. I'm locked into my salary if you're working, or they're not working. And so they'll go to your website, they find you because of your creative marketing, and they'll say, okay, business opportunities, there's all these things, and they float through it, and they'll say, hey, business broker. And some of them will say, what is that? Some of them have a feel for that. So they filled out information. I get a click from you. It says Tommy Smith in Warren, Ohio is interested. I call them. I send them an email right away with a bunch of other information, some reference letters so they get a feel who they're dealing with. But the most important thing is a call. I'm not a giant company. I'm a tiny little training company. I sell a package thing online. I work with 3 or 4 people a month sometimes, and maybe more. But it's not a big company. Everybody deals with me. It's my fun practice as I'm older now. And I'm a consultant in law firms and other things that I do. So this fits right in perfectly. So a person gets a hold of me. I ask them what kind of work they're doing. I think the only person that would be not right for this is somebody that can't stay alive between the deals. You know, it's not a get rich quick thing.
And what do you mean by that? Not to interrupt, is you need a couple months, you know, paying rent, paying bills, you know, that sort of thing to get.
Yeah, you need even more than that sometimes. A typical business transfer, the time that you market to get started, because you're starting from scratch. There's no, nobody knows who's selling and when.
Right.
You have to market to that. And so the best thing is to go after the accountants. They can be gold. So to get an accountant, to refer a business, to talk to somebody, to meet with them, to make a presentation, to get an agreement, takes some time. Then the package that business can take some time, and you can make up to $10,000, $15,000 putting one of these together once you learn how to do it. And I can tell you how to do it and how to propose it, and it makes sense. And when you got the examples in your hand, the guy looks at it and says, "Ooh, can you do this for me?" And then they'll use this for insurance purposes and other things. It's his, he paid for it, but you made some money doing along the road. So sometimes you can do that. Some people have the skills to do that, a little bit computer skills. But the bottom line to the kind of person that would be not ideal for this is just, I haven't run into that. I think that unless you have to stay alive a little bit. If you're positive and you have to be able to speak our language, that was sometimes a problem. I've had some guys from Middle East or one guy from Nigeria call me and he's right in America legally, but he couldn't understand him. So you got to be able to feel.
Well, to be clear, that's well intentioned, but
so you got to be comfortable to talk to business owners, and different kinds of business owners are really easy to talk to. Others are hard, and so you want to market and campaign. You want to go after it. And what I've had some guys do is, as they build their little practice, they run a little ad in their local newspaper. Are you a consultant to business? Are you an ex-vice president of a bank or something? Do you know business owners? Would you like to become an associate with me? And they put them on for a little fee, and that turns around. Sometimes they bring in a deal. So they hire a little staff to, commission only, but a person can get a lot of help from people with a lot of experience who don't want to be working, but can have deals. So, I'm talking in every direction, but to find me, it's the simplest thing in the world. Once they get an interest in this business or any, and if they call me and they say, "I'd rather have a vending machine that I can fill up every day and pick up the nickels," I'll say, "Look for that." And if they come to me, I give them information, references, talk to them, tell them I do. Then they go to bbizbroker.com, or they just look at the link that I sent them. That's an instant purchase. And then within that day, all the materials come. And some things I even customize. I create a little introduction, welcome the latest new person in the IBB. And so the generic name of my company is National Association of Independent Business Brokers. But it's basically a trademark, and I use it as the name for my consulting friends. It's, I found years ago that I was not going to try to build a network and keep track of 300 people's names and addresses and phone numbers and everything. And it didn't work. So the magic of my deal is, you get a deal, it's yours. You don't have to put it on a listing agreement and give it to somebody else and hope they sell it. That doesn't usually work. Your deals are yours. And so what I tell people too is, if you get a big enough one, call me. I'll help you march through it. And I have that kind of relationship with the guys that trust me and things like that. Nowadays it's $500. I could tell you that in my early days, I had 20 people, at least 20, 21 people call me on the phone, talk to me, talk to one of my references, and sent me $15,000 in the mail to buy the program and come and spend a day with me in New York, or 2 days. And I used to give that kind of training, but I learned that because I evolved enough materials and stuff, I didn't have to do that. So that's it. And then if you look at bbizbroker.com and you go history, you'll see a picture of me with 25 people. That was one of my original training sessions. It's kind of cool. And some of those guys made a lot of money. Some of them still do.
So you basically boiled down the $15,000 package into an under $500 package to allow just about anybody to participate.
Take a shot at it, right?
And take a shot. And to be, to be fair, if you're multilingual, that actually can help you in the business broker world, because many people that whatever language, let's speak Mandarin. If you can speak Mandarin, which is very difficult, and they're selling their business, you might actually be able to strike different businesses, within different genres. But
absolutely.
And so I think people misunderstood, or might have misunderstood what you were trying to say, is that there's a lot of money to be made out there in different slivers. You've mentioned 3 things in this video I never thought of. As far as there's so many different categories of businesses to sell. And I don't want to harp on VR, because I actually, VR is VR, one of the larger guys out there. I went on their website and a couple other ones prior to this phone call, and you basically have access to everything they have access to. So there's nothing basically that a buyer wouldn't be able to get with you that they would be able to get with them. Isn't that right?
That's correct. And I started before them.
And yeah, so
and and I don't mind jamming them because they've messed up a lot of people. Is in the early days, there was a gentleman who worked for me in Canada, and he was a consultant. And we fired him because he overcomplicated everything he did. Eventually, he became the training director of VR Business Brokers, and I'm not going to name names. But what he did, the first couple of hundred people they put out there, he ran them into the ground, overcomplicating what they did. And they didn't have a good time back then to that. Like 17 or 18 of them on Long Island alone, Long Island, New York, where they made it so complicated. And so sometimes hiring, when you do these organizations, there was another one called Corporate Investment. They were charging $40,000, and they saw my materials, and they were following some of the scripts and stuff. And it got enough money to throw at the major newspapers back then. You could get clients because everybody was looking for something. They still are. Everybody's looking for a business opportunity. And some people think the more they spend, the more they get. But again, like I told the story, a lot of these, if you're not the sharpest guy on earth, you're 100 grand in debt before you make your first money, if you ever do.
If you're able to do it at all, yeah.
So I enjoy what I do. You can tell. I know it inside out. I liked that last question you gave me about do you have a quote and love that gives you strength and power?
Yeah.
That strength and the peace. Did you like how I answered that to you last night? But if I can talk about that for a second.
Please.
And then ending here, it's a little personal thing. My son is blind. I've talked to you about him. And along the road, Skylar just became so enact of being successful. He studied Braille, and had the equipment. I was able to get him the right equipment early in his life. He's 32 now. And so for 24 years, he got a straight A in everything he ever did.
This kid's amazing. Yeah.
And one day he came to me and said, Dad, I'm really worried about this next test, and I don't want to miss one question and blow my record. And blow your record? Are you kidding? Nobody in America has that record. He had a perfect score on the SAT, on most of the SAT. He had a perfect score on the history for the ACT when he was going to college. And so I calmed him down. I said, just do your best. And he did, and he got another 100%. So my favorite quote was, I'm worried about a test that I have to take tomorrow as a young student. And I always think about that. Like, that is nothing to worry about. And we in business, if we could apply that tenacity to try to be successful and diligent, even 10% of what he has done, we're going to be great successful. And that's my son who's blind. And now he has a PhD. He's married, and he's he became
an award winner.
He became the top line student in America, the top line downhill skier, a classical pianist, and he's at UC Santa Barbara as a professor. And he got married, and him and his wife both got their PhD on Father's Day last year. So I like that story of inspiration. I get my inspiration from him sometimes, and how cool is that?
Yeah, it isn't. I've seen 10 years of it. It's just nothing literally short of amazing.
So I would tell anybody that ever has a child or a family member with disability, stay on it.
That's awesome.
That's what I've done. So that's my big success in life, is dealing with him and helping him march through this to where now he doesn't even need to talk to me. It's really funny. And so you get a loss. But back to the business brokerage. If you're interested in taking a shot at something to learn how to become a consultant to people, some people are consultants already. Use my structure, a few $100. If your computer crashes, I'll give it to you again. It can't be a more friendly deal. I have a cell phone. I talk to people directly, and I think it's a great opportunity. The biggest problem we do have, though, is certain states, California, Florida, Georgia, there's a few, that years ago started the requirement to be a business broker. You have to be a licensed real estate broker. And so I have to be upfront with people, and I tell them right away, if you're in California, get a real estate license. It takes a long time. It's very difficult. So the government sort of screwed us on those people having the opportunity that other people, like in New York and New Jersey and stuff, can just go after. They come up with a name. They work under the law of contracts. They be honorable. And I've never had a problem or complaint from anybody in that framework. But if you're in California, Florida, Georgia, what can I do? There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. And well, if you are real estate, if you're licensed,
Yeah, and licensed
contact
real
Frank.
estate broker too. And I have the problem with licensed real estate brokers is they think they know this already, and most of them don't even have an idea about how to deal with these business owners. And I can help them. So that's if you want to get to me, go to shopabusinessopportunity.com and look for BBiz Broker. Give Kevin a little bit of information through his portal. It comes right to me. I'll send you an email. I'll call you, and we'll have a conversation. And then you might come back 7 years and buy my system. I've had at least 20 people who I talked to more than 7, 8 years ago. In the last 2 years, came back and said, I've been waiting to do this, Frank. I want to do it now. And they got it, and they're happy as can be. I've never had a complaint in 35 years. So thank you, Kevin, for all you've done for me. I appreciate our relationship. I always think you're 1,000% better than the book. This is you.
That's a good book. I don't know. That's a good book.
They did 2 publications and then they stopped it, and I can't flash it because people see it and they want to go get it, and then it's not there.
Yeah, it's no longer in print.
Yeah,
well, I can't thank you enough for being a guest. And Frank also has a great blog on our website every Friday, or almost every Friday. We've been so busy recently that we've been trying to do more video. But visit Frank's Words of Wisdom each Friday. Obviously, you also have an ad on the website, a listing on the website, and additional information. So again, very much appreciate it. And if anybody's looking for a great business in a box that's under $500, that comes constructed with actual help afterwards, maybe even as a side gig or part-time gig, I've been stressing in the last 4 videos that now is the time to buy. That you need a little bit of time to get educated. 30, 60 days is usually, the primary focus of each business that's purchased. So purchasing it now in October will give you the amount of time, particularly if it's a side gig, to get it, understand it, digest it, apply it, and then go in, not being aspirational, being operational into 2020 with a really good understanding about what you're doing. And if you are doing it as a side gig, this is a great one to do. You can, you can help bridge that gap. So let's say you don't have 6 months in the bank, still buy the opportunity, take it as a side gig, do 5, 10 hours a week, start building your contacts, start understanding the business. And as you make that one first sale, perhaps you can take a step out of the corporate world into your own self-employment world, and keep that going. And the more it's very much like real estate in the sense that once you get a couple sales under your belt, people start coming to you because they know that you can do it. And then you gain a little bit of reputation, and then you're on your way. So
yeah, let me add to that, Kevin. Let me just add to that. Let me add to that for you. Please. You were so right, because this time of the year, every person who has a business is seeing their accountant. And so the accountants are the sounding boards, accountants, attorneys, mainly accountants. And everybody has something whispering in their ear, every business owner. So if you can go and do marketing just to 100 accountants and get them a little brochure, dear accounting friend, if you have a client who wants to sell their business, contact us. There's a nice letter that addresses that. Just take the letter, copy it, put it in an envelope, send it out with your name on it. And this is the time of the year over the next 6 months where every single business owner is going to their accountants. So you've got a captive audience to get those kind of leads. And this is the great time of the year to do it. And part-time is the best way to start, I think. And that's where most people that are calling me, who are sitting there on a computer late at night, because I get the clicks at 2 or 3 in the morning.
2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah. Bing, and I say, holy God, who's this? And it's a guy in Warren, Ohio or somewhere saying, I'm looking at this, I got to do something, and it's a new economy, and people have to figure out how they're going to make it. Yeah. And the life of corporate security is over. That was a thing I wrote in the Wall Street Journal once. The life of corporate security is over. Become a business broker. So
time to be self-employed.
Yes.
All right. Well, guys, don't forget to subscribe below. Appreciate everybody watching. Coming for week 6. Each Monday we'll be releasing on all social networks. Thanks again, Frank, for taking your time to be a guest.
Thank you, Kevin.